Have you ever wondered what would happen if the Titans in the skibidi Zombieverse never got infected? How would that have affected the plot of the story? Well, after speculating over this for hours actually, I finally figured out how interesting the entire story would have turned out to be though, and not gonna lie, it was really a banger. And beginning with one of the most best Titans in the series, let's see how things would have played out if the upgraded camera Titan was never infected. Okay, and you see, although this guy seems to be the only Titan with the shortest infection experience before he got disinfected, but the casualties, or should we say consequences, of his infection before the ending of the first act were actually way more disastrous and terrible. Yes, but we'll cover that in a bit. However, talking about what if the upgraded camera Titan was never infected in the series is actually more like finding a way to escape him from being infected in the first place, and that was actually possible in one of the most interesting ways ever in episode 52. In that episode, the Red Drill Titan was faced against the infected TV Titan in a very serious 1v1 fight. But even though it was somehow clear the Red Drill Titan seems to have a higher winning potential over the latter, the appearance of the upgraded camera Titan back then was what actually spoiled the entire show and gave the TV Titan the upper hand to go that far in the series. But now, since we actually, after every way possible to make the camera Titan not been infected, we could just assume the Red Drill Titan and the upgraded camera Titan had rather teamed up to fight the infected TV Titan in that fight. And you all know what only the Red Drill Titan could pull off single-handedly against this guy already though, and adding this version of upgraded camera Titan to him would just completely be an overkill. Yes, as you have to keep in mind that just as one has a very potential way to immobilize him to an extent, the other possesses one of the most deadliest weapons in the series that, when detonated, could cause a very massive explosion similar to a nuclear bomb. So yeah, it would be too easy. And with this big win on the Alliance's side, it's obvious the Plague Doctor would either be forced to back off from pushing further or insisted on going to fight off the Alliance with the remaining infected Speaker Titan and the mutants, which yeah, would actually turn out to be a total loss on his side even though he transformed, and either be getting captured or killed the moment the Alliance, together with the Clock and Tri-Titan if possibly, would still be appearing in this scene. But basically the Alliance would have still be in a more better shape, as the G-Man and the rest of every other sad event that took place within this short amount of time wouldn't have come to place. However, with all of this now taking place, you should already know now that Plunger Man wouldn't have become what he's now. Yeah, and that was that about the first what-if scenario. But how about the TV Titan? What if he never got infected? Okay, let's see. Speaking of saving the TV Titan from being infected in the series, yeah, there's obviously a way of doing that. Coming back to episode 25, where he actually got infected in the story, something actually did happen there. Before Plunger Man went on to face off against the infected large TV man, we first saw him calling on the camera Titan for some kind of backup, which unfortunately happened to be the TV Titan who showed up instead, and eventually he got infected. So yeah, let's just assume now that the camera Titan, or the G-Toilet, seeing he had more of a winning advantage over the infected TV man, was actually the Alliance Titan who came to help the Plunger Man in this scenario, and not the TV Titan. And with that twist, I believe you all already know where I am going now, right? Okay, what happens next? Well, instead of seeing an infected TV Titan in the following episode, the reverse would completely be the case. The Alliance Titans would rather team up together this time around to defeat the infected Astro and TV Man together, while the Clock Titan would still most definitely appear. And another thing actually is that the camera Titan wouldn't be getting bullied any longer in this scenario, which means that in this story his earlier disappearance in the original series would no longer be plausible, and he would still most likely remain in his base form, while every other event would still go the same way as in the original from this episode to episode 30, with the Alliance Speaker Marauders getting introduced to the series. However, episodes 31 to 34 would no longer feature an infected TV Titan, meaning only the Siren Titan would be seen facing off against the G-Toilet and Astro, which, yeah, would really be a tough one for the latter and might lead to him getting easily knocked out compared to the original, but it would just be somehow underwhelming to miss out on one of the most interesting fighting scenes in the series. Yeah, the G-Toilet versus the infected TV Titan was actually a given matchup. However, since the G-Toilet wouldn't be going all out on the Siren Titan before knocking him out, it's safe to say he might not be getting that consumed by the X-18 core stuff in this scenario, by the way. And from this episode to episode 41, everything would remain the same actually, with the Siren Titan completely getting destroyed by the Red Drill Titan. Meanwhile, episode 42 would have rather played out more differently this time around. Yeah, since the camera Titan wouldn't have gone for an upgrade yet, it's likely to see the G-Toilet camera Titan and the upgraded TV Titan turning up for the fight against the Red Drill Titan and the infected Speaker Titan instead. Which, yeah, I believe these guys would pretty much do well to handle them whatsoever. However, the Red Drill Titan might not be bullied that that much compared to the original before they find their way out, making his Genesis form version not a plausible one in this scenario as well. While none of the Titans would have been infected either, but the Alliance Titans might have a more tougher time dealing with the infected skibidi scientist than in the original story in episode 47 before finally getting him uninfected. I mean, since the camera Titan would still literally be in his base form, that would obviously be kind of a major setback for him in this battle, and even though they would still most likely win against this guy, it would come with very, very mid-difficulty. That said, another important change in the story is that the camera Titan would no longer be infected. Not only that, but most of the fights before the first arc's end would no longer be considered relevant, as they were mostly based on the infected Titans and the Alliance. However, the appearance of the upgraded clock and Tri-Titan might still be plausible, and even though the final battle of the first arc would likely still take place, the Plague Doctor would have been at a major disadvantage. After all, most of his potential infected Titans in the original story would have still remained uninfected in this scenario. So yeah, if the TV Titan was never actually infected in episode 25 of the series, it's most likely that he was never infected again. Okay, and moving on to the last one, let's see how the story would have played out also if the Speaker Titan was never infected.
Well, after spending hours thinking about this, I finally figured out how the story could play out. And I could say there are multiple ways this would really impact the plot of the series. And I bet you would even be very much happy about one change in particular, as our Speaker Titan wouldn't be having this scary, disgusting face to begin with. But seriously now, let's find out how the Speaker Titan could even avoid getting infected in the first place before anything else. And you see, in the original story, the Speaker Titan became infected earlier in the series, just as he arrived at the Alliance base, due to the fact that it was that same moment the computer systems in the base were hit by virus 19, which later caused an outbreak that almost got everyone infected inside the base. Soon, a large group of infected characters could be seen to have rushed the Speaker Titan and eventually got him infected too. However, there is this way we could make the Speaker Titan escape from being infected. And in this scenario, we could just assume that instead of the Speaker Titan to appear earlier in the episode, his appearance would be a little bit delayed, and thus he did not come in episode 8, as even his earlier appearance in the original series was not much of an impact, but only for him to come at the wrong time and became infected just immediately. Okay, seems that scenario was cool, and since we have now successfully escaped the Speaker Titan from being infected, the question now should be, what happens next, right? Yeah, and well, we could say there's nothing really much again in this episode, since the Speaker Titan would not be seen. But one thing is, the Alliance base would still definitely be compromised, just as it did happen in the original series. And at this point, you can probably guess what's coming in the next episode, right? As instead of seeing the Super G-Man battle the infected Speaker Titan, we'd see him focused on helping the Alliance members to successfully evacuate the base. The defensive barrier that was originally breached by the infected Speaker Titan's core blast during his fight with Super G-Man would hold up much longer here also, keeping the toilet zombies at bay for a while. And as a result, the evacuation would go much more smoothly than in the original series, where our POV character ended up fighting off zombies to save his bald-headed skibidi friend. However, episode 11 would be the perfect time to introduce the Speaker Titan. And instead of seeing him go head-to-head with the Super G-Man, though, they team up to take down the infected chainsaw toilet. Plus, the Super G-Man wouldn't lose as many upgrades this way, since in the original series, he only lost them due to the high threat levels from both the Jackson skibidi and the infected Speaker Titan. This time also, with the Alliance aware of the zombies' danger, they'd give the Speaker Titan quite some fitting upgrades that would help him stand a better chance against any threat. And we may even get to see some of the cool weapons used by the Speaker Men much earlier in the series. And as for the Drill Titan, he'd still appear later on, but by the time he shows up, they would definitely have finished off the enemies. However, this is where things would really start getting interesting, as the Alliance together would be able to totally change the course of events from episode 13 to 22, due to the fact that the infected Jackson skibidi and the others in episode 13, which later led our POV to the creepy infected Speaker Man base, wouldn't be much of a threat to the three Titans. Well, you know what that means, right? The Drill Titan wouldn't get infected either, and the Speaker Men wouldn't be appearing that much earlier. Instead, we would be quickly teleported by the TV Man to the location where the camera and the TV Titan were then. In episodes 23 and 24, the battle featuring the powerful G-Man, Camera Titan, and TV Titan against the infected skibidi scientist would play out very differently. With the combined strength of the Alliance, the skibidi scientist would likely be defeated much earlier. And I want you to pay more attention to this, as in episode 25, the TV Titan would not be infected any longer, as the scientist wouldn't have had the chance to meet the Astro Toilet in episode 21 to spread the infection. And instead, we would see a fully healthy squad ready for action. Additionally, the fight between TV TV Titan and the infected TV man would still be plausible. However, in this alternate scenario, the whole squad would join the fight, unlike in the original story where the TV Titan fought solo. And overall, every other event would likely follow a similar path to the original, with the infected skibidi scientist puppet being destroyed, while his true body would still likely manage to escape. Yeah, he'll probably have that plot armor, since he's now likely the only major threat to the Alliance. And there wouldn't be that much need for the Base Clock Titan and Siren Titan to appear in episodes 26 and 27 again, while every of the epic battles that also took place from these episodes to episode 46 would definitely be suspended, as all were based on the infected characters and all that. But one thing that would have happened instead is that the Scorpion upgraded version of the infected skibidi scientist would be seen much earlier in this scenario, as the Plague Doctor would not in any way find it easy to infect any of the Titans. But would the Alliance be able to do this on their own, seeing that even in the original story, it actually took the upgraded version of the Camera Titan, Cameraman, G-Man, and the Astro Duchess to overpower the Scorpion version of the scientist? Anyway, I would say this might be kind of tough in the very first place, but in the end, their sheer strength would definitely be powerful enough to bring down the Scorpion version of the scientist. However, this might not just come with the disinfection mindset, as there wouldn't be that much space and serious threat for the Alliance in first place to go for the virus vaccine within this very short period of time. However, check out this video to know if the real-world army could stop the zombie apocalypse.